Greetings and konnichiwa, and welcome to the Onyx Tavern. This is your host, the Barkeep, bringing you podcast 91 here at the Tavern, presented by Hirotaku.com. And ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat for you all tonight. That treat being that I am not the only one here. We have two guest stars, regulars, wherever you want to go ahead and call them, here on the Tavern tonight. Guys, introduce yourselves.
Hello, it is Tryaz.
And it is Raptor, as usual. We have been copying me. The only people copying around here are those goddamn clones in Smash Bros. 4.
Yeah, true that.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, so amongst audio issues that we've been having trying to get this podcast going, these two have been playing Smash Brothers the entire time. So, guys, I like to think that while I've been dealing with all these problems, you guys have just been having a blast over there, right?
Hey, I can't do anything to help with your recorder issues.
I mean, I may live 10 minutes away, but you're not asking me for assistance, so...
Yeah, I live 2,000 miles away. I can't do shit.
Well, I think we got the audio issues fixed for at least this evening. And since we got that fixed, we're going to go ahead and talk about everybody's favorite subject, future Power Rangers. Specifically, the thoughts on the adaptation of ToQger. Now, for those of you who have been following any Power Ranger news, there have been some tweets that have been coming out from a Twitter user by the name of O.92, to which we will provide the link to you in our comments section. Now, basically, what is he had a conversation with Saban and kind of got what Saban's thoughts are on adapting ToQger for a new Power Ranger series. So, guys, I'm going to go ahead and read off these tweets given to you in their entirety, and then we're going to have a discussion based on our reactions to what we're hearing here. So the first tweet goes, and I quote, Saban's current thoughts on ToQger. Trains are not major part of kids' lives in U.S. like Japan. Trains also not major public trans in U.S. That's the first tweet. The second tweet, does not mean ToQger will be skipped, depends what Toei does next, but Saban isn't in love with ToQger. This is per Bandai. The third quote, or third tweet in here, Saban feels ToQger suits incredibly preschooler-ish or schoolish. Zord's too stiff, but we'll see. Depends on ToQger's final sales in Japan and Toei's next theme. And finally, so basically, toy sales are the deciding factor on if Saban can skip Sentai or not. Basically, Saban all about the dollar sign. So unquote. So guys,
no third dollar sign?
There might be a third dollar sign.
They've always been about the dollar sign from day one.
And that's what I'm going to go ahead and talk to you guys about, because there are a lot of things in here that I find interesting. If indeed all these are true, I'm not saying that O.92 is gospel, but these seem to be generally accepted thoughts from the fandom and
also,
kind of what we're hearing.
It's probably worth noting that I'm pretty sure this guy didn't talk to Haim Saban himself. I think when he says Saban, he's just talking about people within the organization Saban Brands Ltd.
Absolutely. I don't think we ever mean Saban, but yeah, this seems to be what the company is thinking, and I really want to get your all's thoughts on this. So, Raptor, why don't you go first? Tell me what you think about all this and kind of your reactions.
Okay, well, first of all, I am not surprised by these comments. The first time that I saw the ToQ suits and the Zords, I knew it was going to be a hard sell for the people on the American end of it. Because as much as I admire the show for committing to its theme, because believe me, ToQger does what it does without shame, and I admire it for that, it's a hard sell because he's right. Trains are not a big thing here in the U.S.
Well, Raptor... go ahead, Raptor. I'm sorry. You go ahead with me.
The most exposure that most kids get to a train is having to stop at the freaking crossing and watch it as it goes by.
Well, Raptor,
I
you
mean,
bring up a very good point, and I want to go ahead and chime in on this just real quick on that first point there. As everybody knows, I've been to Japan. I know how big trains are there, the Shinkansen, the local trains, all that stuff. I get that. But I don't understand this whole thing about not as popular with kids because I've seen toy trains out there. I've seen kids with train sets. I mean, what kid doesn't like trains? I've never heard of a kid that doesn't like trains. Just because it's not part of your everyday life doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to like it. I mean, if we follow that logic, are dinosaurs a part of anybody's daily life? Are samurai part of everybody's daily
okay,
life?
hold on. First of all, I mean, I don't know. Did you like trains as a kid?
I love trains. We had a train set, and we had one of those little ones that you kind of sit on, you got to push and all
Okay,
that.
okay,
Love
okay.
trains.
What about you, Tryaz?
Of course, I like trains. Every year in Livingston, back home where I live, they'd have a huge festival at the depot during the 4th of July. And underneath the wine and cheese place, they had this
Okay, I guess
huge,
I'm the only
excellent
one.
indoor train set. Like, I mean, not as vibrant as Japan, obviously, and hence that's what ToQger thrives on, the different sort of trains, and then it kind of goes and yada, yada, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. It can still
Okay,
happen in
I guess
America.
I'm the only person here who didn't really give a crap about trains growing up.
Which 2 out of 3 isn't bad. So saying that about our generation doesn't really say much about this generation
And
because
Very
and
good point,
maybe
yes.
Barkeep's got a point. 'Cause, I mean, think about it. Thomas the Tank Engine's been making it as a kid show for decades.
he thought he could. He thought he could. He thought he could.
That's the little engine that could, not Thomas.
Same thing.
Yeah, but I think the point remains is that just because trains are not a part of everyday lives doesn't necessarily mean that kids and let's that's what they believe their demographic is. So let's say kids are not going to buy into it. But I don't necessarily believe that. Now their marketing may be telling them something different, but I think that's I wouldn't call it a fallacy, but I would call it something they need to rethink. Maybe. What do you guys think?
Hmm. I can understand it. And this kind of rolls back to Thomas the Tank Engine.
Okay.
I I think that the marketers are trying to because who what's the first pop cultural association you have with trains? The first franchise that you would associate when you hear about trains. We're just talking about fictional franchises here. We're not talking about your real life experiences. We're not talking about the train set that you have at your house.
It's going to be Thomas the Train. I mean, most people
Exactly.
think that. TT.
Or or, or
I
that Tool Chuggington.
Well,
Never heard of him.
honestly, when you said that, I was thinking like westerns, like the Lone Ranger and Zorro and all that. And they would do the train heists and stuff. That was my thought, just old westerns.
Oh, see, I immediately think of Thomas the Tank Engine. I think that's probably the same thought process that's going on for these marketers. They're probably thinking, "Oh crap, we don't want Power Rangers Thomas the Train Force."
So, do you suppose that Bandai, or excuse me, or Bandai Saban, whoever, thinks they're in competition with Thomas?
I think they don't want to be associated with Thomas.
I see.
It would kind of be like if it would kind of be like having if you accidentally associate yourself with Barney the dinosaur and trying to tone that down.
Well, Q Ryuger kind of does that.
And you know what? I bet they're toning it down. I bet they're going to try and cut down as much of that music and dancing as they can.
And that's a
With
discussion for another time.
I know,
but,
yeah, no, that's definitely another time. But what I'm saying is,
yeah, yeah.
we're going to try and
but-
cut that down.
Yeah. So, Raptor, please go ahead and finish your thoughts, and then we'll move on. Just kind of like again from these right here. And just what do you think overall based on these comments? What else do you have to add for us?
Uh, other than that, yeah, I agree that from an outsider's perspective, I think that the suits and Zords look very preschoolish. I've said in context, I love it, the context of the show, but from an outsider's perspective, yes, I am. The the Zords and the suits would be a difficult sell on me. So I'm in agreement with everything they said. So
Okay. And Tyzar, I never get your name right, damn it. What are your thoughts, man, on these comments?
Eh, it's what you expected. I mean, I didn't expect anything less. I mean, I'm not trying to say like Saban's like not.
Are you still there, man? We hear you cut out for a second.
Yeah, I'm back. I'm pretty sure it's my internet being stupid. But what I was saying is, I'm not saying Saban's a company for not supporting, like, I don't know even how to put it. All I can say is, I'm pretty sure Saban is also not comfortable with having the image of a male Pink Ranger for whatever reason. They don't want to do that associated with, and I feel that's another reason they're not interested, and that'd be like me going to conspiracy being underlining. But as far as what they've displayed, it's if the money books don't fit, we're not doing it.
Now, let me just kind of go back to about the male Pink Ranger thing, because I brought this up in a previous podcast that I done, and I seriously do believe that somebody at Saban, Bandai, anywhere is a little bit concerned about that, because the way that the line changes are going, they're so extensive. Just about every episode there is a male Pink Ranger of sorts, a male Yellow Ranger, which we've also talked about in the past that Toei has been trying to get away from is the male Yellow Rangers. So do you guys think that, I guess for lack of a better definition, sexism may be playing a role in this, or gender expectations?
gender expectations, I'm not going to accuse them of being sexist over it.
Okay.
I don't know. It could go both ways. I mean, it definitely make sure the girls fit their roles perfectly. I mean, almost too perfectly, if you ask me. Especially if you take ToQger 5. I mean, just dear God, could you get a more bubbly like girl who wants to be 5? Seriously. I mean, compare her to Amy Amy from Kyoryuger, or even Gokai Pink. Like, the only reason I'm using those surnames is because I can't remember their names. But seriously, just the whole different aspects, just, I don't know. It could be both ways.
Okay. Let's kind of backtrack for a bit here, because I think we all kind of agree on... I mean, we all understand the train discussion. I think we all agree on the suits. And, preschooler-ish, maybe that's going a little bit too far, but, they still haven't grown on me. They haven't grown on you guys, I bet, right?
Nope. Well, I like ToQger 6's suit. I like ToQger 6's backstory.
The sash helmet.
He's starting to grow on me, so...
But his suit does look, I would say, a lot better than the others. So I think that's one thing. I don't understand what they mean.
It's the visors that make me completely unable to accept them.
The train visors?
Yeah, the rail visors, and those helmets are too... I don't want to say big, but I do want to say big.
Just kind of unbalanced, maybe?
Yeah, they're big and round.
Well,
okay.
They're supposed to kind of look like the front of a train.
I know.
Okay. Well, guys, let me engage you on this particular line where it says depends on ToQger's final sales in Japan. Now, let's stop right there. We've had a number of discussions on this board about sales in Japan, America, Bandai America, all that kind of stuff. So, why do you think that they're not concerned about what Americans think about trains, but they're concerned about what the Japanese think about in terms of sales? I mean, are we to believe that if the Japanese audience doesn't like it, then automatically the American audience is not going to like it? One of you guys go. Tell me what you think.
Point in case, Pokemon, Digimon, so on and so forth. It ruled in Japan and is ruling in America. So what Japan does, America does. Monkey see, monkey do.
Well, actually, I'm going to correct you for a moment on the Pokemon thing. Pokemon was almost not released in the U.S. because Nintendo didn't think it would sell well in the U.S., and it took Nintendo America pleading for it to get released. So there is some of that cultural difference taken into consideration with these international companies. But
Unknown to me. Until now.
Yep, I did a lot of research. But anyways, this I know that, and Ricky, you make a good point. It sounds contradictory that they're worried about what American kids think of trains, but they're also waiting to see how the toy sales do. And I think that's because the reason the what I think that means is that on first glance, the people that this guy was talking to don't like it, but they're going to wait on sales numbers. So, they had a gut feeling, but they're just going to wait on actual numbers. Does that make sense?
I believe it does, but I would like to go ahead and point out O-Ranger, for example, here, which was not very popular in Japan, as we've discussed before, but they adapted into Zeo anyway. Granted, this is an older example that we have, but only up until Go Buster did this actually become a thing that a non-popular series doesn't get adapted. And I hate to think of the idea that
gotta correct you on something.
Okay, go ahead.
O-Ranger initially had low ratings, but it was a smash hit with toys.
It got better, yes, and then the toys did well and so forth. Yes, I understand that. But we're also talking about the popularity of the series as well, because I think those things will have to go hand in hand. I mean, if it's popular, the toys are going to do well, or however that works, because as everybody knows, I'm not very good with supply and demand, popularity, and whatnot and stuff, because what was my original thought? Guys, you threw me off right here.
You fell right into my trap.
Yes, I did.
Elaborate ruse.
Okay. Here's my thing. Here's what I was trying to say. I hate to think that we will not get adaptations based on how fickle the Japanese audience is. That's what bothers me, because I like Go Buster. I thought it had great potential. I think you could adapt it well and all that good stuff. But just because the Japanese audience doesn't like it means we're not going to go ahead and get it. There seems to be something off about that. I mean, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I would agree with you there. Because cultural differences have to be taken into account. And yeah, it could be difficult because there are certain things that will sell well in one place but tank in another. Want to hear something weird about Americans hating one thing but Japanese loving another?
Okay.
Supergirl in the 80s. It was a spin-off of the Christopher Reeve Superman movies.
Yep.
Tanked in the US.
Oh yeah.
Was an astronomical success in Japan.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't use the word astronomical, but it was a huge hit in Japan. And Supergirl is more famous than Superman in Japan.
Now that is quite fascinating. I think they did Justice League Unlimited episode about that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why when she goes, she's more famous, because that actually happened.
Okay.
So what I'm getting at is that these things can be hard to predict.
Mm-hmm.
And while one can probably guess that good sales in one region would translate into good sales in another, I think that works with more general interest topics, like dinosaurs. I consider kids loving dinosaurs to be a wider array of interests. Because, let's face it, there are not movies that primarily revolve around trains in the top 20 highest grossing films of all time.
True.
And I think that's what is ultimately the issue here. Is anything I'm saying making sense?
Yeah.
I understand definitely, but I think what the core issue is, and this is what bothers me, I think even more than what I had just said.
Please,
I want your opinion on this. Is that Saban is in essence a slave to Bandai's product sales. And what I mean by that is they're not going to adapt a series unless Bandai thinks they can make a profit out of it. And as a storyteller, as somebody who's into film and all that stuff, it tells me that they're less interested over at Saban at making stories and building characters than they are about selling merchandise. I may be an idealist there, or who knows, but, I mean, what do you guys think about that?
I think that's always been that way.
I mean, can't look at it any other way.
I mean, I think that when Haim Saban first watched, I forget which Sentai.
Bioman.
Yeah, when he watched Bioman in a Japanese hotel room, I don't think he was. I think he had dollar signs in his eyes, not the sparkles of wonder at a cool show.
You watched Bioman first? That I did not know.
Yeah, he watched Bioman first. His first attempt was Bioman. That didn't work. He tried again with Jetman, and it didn't work, but it finally worked out with Zoo Ranger.
You know, guys,
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, it may be the idealist in me and stuff, but it just seems to me that, I don't know, I just don't think it should be based on the popularity in toy sales. I mean, if they're going to continue the formula of adapting Sentai, then I don't see the reason why they have to skip it, spend 2 years on a Sentai, or be, you know, it's like I understand the whole Forever Red thing, where they had to work in the Wild Force Rider because they didn't have a budget and Bandai was willing to pay for it if they promoted this. That I completely understand. I have no problem with Amit Bomik or anybody else on the Wild Force staff for doing that. But if Bandai is going to come in there and say, all right, we know this is what the next series is going to be. We don't want you guys doing this at all. You're going to go ahead and write for this. That just, again, just kind of bothers me on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, I guess I can't share your idealism. Perhaps my ideals have been turned to resentment, and open minds have closed up to cynicism.
Oh, quit being Phil.
No, I'm just quoting.
I'm trying to be smart. That's what I'm trying
quoting,
to say.
I'm quoting against me.
Okay.
The whole point of the tavern is to try and be smart. Emphasis on the word try.
All right. Since we're talking about story here, this is something I wanted to get into on this topic.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's talk about Power Rangers' usual tendency to try and, I guess, make things a bit more edgy or cooler than things that happened in Sentai. All right?
Okay, so are we going to talk about, like, because let's be honest, ToQger's not really edgy, and I think that was the point of it.
Bingo.
Okay. Because if we look at the pattern, Go Kaiger was very edgy. Go Buster was, well, edgy, but they're not adapting that. And Q Ryuger is a little bit friendlier than that. So, to your point.
What I'm guessing is, I think. So let's consider times where we had. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Zoo Ranger, a mystical show about, representatives of ancient tribes battling an evil. Well, I guess evil witch, that counts in both versions. But then it gets turned into
Teenagers with Attitude.
Yeah, with more emphasis on the technology instead of the magic. Mm-hmm. And then we have the light-hearted Car Ranger getting turned into the attempting to be serious Turbo.
Sometimes attempting to be serious.
Yeah, when depending on which writer won that day.
Yeah.
I think the movie took it yeah, it's pretty much true. The movie took it seriously, then it was
and the finale did. The finale took it seriously.
In Space was great. Taking a video game into space, that was the greatest idea ever.
Yeah, I guess that one wasn't a real
and then
shift.
Another one too would be Lost Galaxy. Originally that was going to be titled Space Jungle, and they were like, no, screw that, throw it in the garbage bin. Lost Galaxy, and it made more sense for everybody.
So
because
Raptor,
they were already in space, Earth had just been annihilated,
and then
had been invaded. Excuse me. Dark Spectre is destroyed. Zordon is dead at the hands of Andros. through Zordon's request, obviously.
All right.
It's
So-
just
So
that
to-
made sense.
Yeah, sorry,
But we're
guys.
off
Just
track.
just to get back on topic right here. So Raptor, am I understanding that you think that they would not be able to make ToQger into what they want? Basically, is that what I'm
I
understanding?
think that if they try, unless they had some really clever writers, if they tried, they could really mess it up. I'm going to put this in terms that you uniquely will understand, Barkeep.
Okay.
They could make an RPM out of this. If what I mean is trying to take on a serious tone that their footage does not work with.
From comedic footage, I get your point.
Yeah, and while ToQger is not expressly comedic, it's more lighthearted with its fights and whatnot. Because, I mean, come on, those freaking imagination finishers.
Yes. Which I would imagine there'd be some editing out there, but basically you're getting to the point that it is basically too kid friendly for probably what Saban is aiming at.
Yeah, because come on, you've got the characters shouting about imagination. So what I think is that they could end up mangling the story too much if they tried to age it up. And I think that would be my greatest concern with the series. That bothers me more than, toy sales dictating whether or not they do something. I don't care about that if they're going to adapt one story or not adapt one story, because a story's getting adapted. We should just adapt. We should critique what's coming out rather than what's not coming out. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and I think there's a bigger topic in there in regards to adaptation, and that's something I hope that we plan on tackling here in the near future. But in regards directly to ToQger, I can see how they would find it difficult depending on what they want to go ahead and write, because as we've talked about, it seems that Saban is lowering the age of expectation for their audience, but if they did want to do something a little bit more mature, a little less, let's use the term preschoolish, then ToQger is not a good way to go ahead and do that, it seems.
Saban, especially in the Neo Saban era, and really all Power Rangers has always tried to be cool, and I feel that it would be hard for them to try and make something cool out of the ToQger footage.
That would be tricky.
Now, please note how I'm emphasizing how I say the word cool in the whole extreme stuff from the 90s that we never really got over.
Well, the 90s, that's kind of that's forgivable, but this is 2014 and so forth, so we need to kind of move away from
But
that.
Power Rangers has always been marketed as kind of a hip kids property. And I think that trying to make something out of the ToQ footage and the ToQ suits could be disastrous.
Okay.
So, I mean, you disagree with us, but Dane, I think they may work with RPM, but I think that was a lucky fluke.
I'm not going to say lucky fluke because there was...
lucky fluke and good writing behind it.
Yeah, because Saban actually was able to get like a little bit of their meats into it. I mean, they took over most of like the final, basically most of the post-production for it. But as far as writing story plots goes, I think Disney knew it was going to be their last season because Saban wanted it back. So like, all right, let's make it the best thing we can make it.
And Judd Lin came back.
Very true. Judd Lin having a hand in that, and that's why I said Saban regaining control. Just perfect.
So, guys, let's go ahead.
And they screwed up.
Let's go ahead and cover one more thing before we get out of here, and it's the last thing I want to go ahead and talk about, and it's primarily ToQger is going to depend on how well it does and what the next Sentai is going to be. Now, we can speculate all night as far as what the next theme is going to go ahead and be, but I want to go ahead and get into this type of speculation. I guess the question would be is, how bad would the next theme have to be if we follow through on this logic for them to adapt ToQger, you guess?
Well, didn't we already discuss rumors about it being a Beast Sentai again?
I think we get those rumors all the time, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess what theme is worse than trains or could be considered more child-friendly that Saban just doesn't want to go ahead and deal with? I mean, again, what could be worse than trains, I guess?
Planes and automobiles.
Petting zoos?
I think they're having a hissy fit about nothing, so...
I think that a creative mind could take it and handle it, but, I'm just comparing it to Megaforce and Samurai, and I think that fans of ToQger would probably consider it a blessing in disguise if it was skipped, based on what we've had. Maybe Dino Charge will change my mind.
I hope it changed my mind.
The next decider, considering how terrible Super Megaforce has just been.
Yes.
Who watched today's episode?
I have not been keeping up on them, guys. I've been trying to catch up on these vlogs and everything.
I'm at work, and we have TVs in the studios because we can do it. So I'm like, all right, cool, 10 o'clock, time to see how bad this episode is. 2 minutes in, nope.
I watch Abba Ranger. Almost done with it. Hey, here's the thing about you keeping up the weekly ToQger. I keep up with the weekly Abba Rangers. Imagination Station gets them out.
So I'm technically watching 2 series here, Super Megaforce and ToQger. Except I only give Super Megaforce until I see something dumb, which is usually really soon.
Yes.
Well, if we're talking about watching 2 series, I'm watching Abba Ranger and I'm doing my yearly rewatch of Gurren Lagann, so whatever.
Okay then.
Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and call last call on this. So I'm going to go to each of you, and I want you to just tell me your final thoughts on this topic. One of y'all go.
Spawn, how dare you be the 143rd richest person in the world and be so greedy that judging a series based on its books makes it undeemable, because you've proven to have been able to turn them around many, many, many times again. But you know what? I don't care.
I bet he hasn't really done crap with the creative decisions. I think the only decision he made was to buy it back.
Yeah, but I think he had something to do with at least Mighty Morphin, for sure.
I'm just saying lately. But anyways, as for my surmised thoughts, I think that if a more traditional Sentai, if that makes sense, comes after ToQger, I could totally see it being skipped. And that may not be a bad thing.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
Okay, and I think I'm just going to, for my final thought, just kind of reiterate what I've been saying. It just seems very disheartening to hear this type of information, to think that what type of entertainment we're going to get, what type of toys we're going to get, and all that is going to be dependent on an 8-year-old 6,000 miles away, speaks another language, has different morals, different values, different ideas of what he thinks entertainment is, and everybody's more focused on what they think and how it's going to relate to the American audience. That's the kind of stuff that bothers me. Doesn't necessarily keep me up at night, but it does make me wary about the future of the franchise.
You gave me a really funny mental image. I just imagined a little 8-year-old Japanese boy's whims commanding an entire company, but just like one little boy doing that.
Is that not the butterfly effect?
Yeah.
Okay.
But hey, you made your point. You made it well.
Oh, thank you. Well, guys, I want to thank you all for joining me here again tonight. Hopefully we'll get the audio issues corrected so we won't have any more problems in the future. But I'm definitely going to bring you guys in on a few more episodes. A couple of ideas I want to bat around with you guys. So we will see you guys again later. And again, thank you just for joining us.
Yeah, always glad to be back.
Mm-hmm. Pleasure.
All right. Well, again, thank you guys, and thank you all for listening. Leave in the comments section, fellow patrons of the tavern, on what do you think about the ToQger adaptation. Do you think they should do it? Do you think they should skip it? And how do you feel about Bandai essentially taking control of the creative process in Power Rangers and the Japanese market? But I want to thank you all again for listening. Everyone have yourselves a good evening, and the tavern is now closed.